Hey guys, today I'm out here in Austin, Texas because I have finally been able to drive the Lexus RX 450h Plus. That's a lot of alphabet soup to say that this is the plug-in hybrid Lexus RX. More than 30 miles of range, nearly 40 miles per gallon if you treat it right on the open highway. This is one of the most efficient and perhaps one of the most pragmatic crossovers available in the luxury segment. Let's talk about the design first. Obviously, it is very similar to the rest of the RX lineup. This model has the grille that fades sort of into the sides. It's still pretty big and pretty bold, but it's not quite as hungry as the RX used to be. I do like the look, however, in the new Lexus TX. If you want to know more about the Lexus TX, that video is coming up very soon. As we work our way around the side of the RX, you'll notice that we still have the long front overhang, this definite sort of beak-like shape up front, but it swoops around to these tri-module LED headlights, which is an attractive look. And then the side profile is a bit more station wagony than the RX has been in the past. They've gone from very boxy and upright over the years to more of this sleek profile, which is really accentuated by that long window right back there. Now, in the rear of the RX, they've sort of split the difference as far as cargo practicality versus the previous generation RX and RXL. There is no RXL model, but the cargo area has been upsized basically versus the previous RX. It's not quite as generous as the Lexus TX with the third row folded, but that's of course what that TX is for. If I close the hatch, take a look at the design back here. We have the Lexus signature taillight module with a bit of a different kick up right here than we've found before in the past. It's a bit broader as it goes towards the side. The engine lineup in the RX is pretty complicated. There are 2 different engines, 4 total drivetrains, and 3 of them are hybrids. Of course, this is the top dog, the plug-in hybrid. But it's not the most powerful in the hybrid lineup. That would be the RX 500h. I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself though. The RX 350 has a 2.4-liter turbocharged 4-cylinder engine, also used in a wide variety of Toyota and Lexus models. We then move up to the RX 350h, which borrows the hybrid system essentially from the RAV4 hybrid, adds some extra power for use in the Lexus lineup. Then we have the RX 500h that uses the 2.4-liter turbo from the base model, plus a 6-speed automatic transmission, plus an electric motor in the front and an electric motor in the back to give you well over 350 horsepower. Then we have this one here, which returns to the 2.5-liter naturally aspirated engine from the regular hybrid, adds a bigger battery pack and a bigger motor in the rear to give you 304 horsepower total. Electric range comes in right around 35 miles or so, and fuel economy after the range has been depleted is also about 35 miles in daily driving, 35 miles per gallon. That makes this certainly one of the most efficient vehicles in this segment. The direct competition to the Lexus RX would be something like the Volvo XC60 T8 plug-in hybrid. That's going to give you significantly more power, but also notably lower fuel economy. Range is pretty decent in the XC60. Pricing, that is a little bit tricky because this starts at $70,000. So depending on exactly how you have your XC60 plug-in hybrid equipped, it's going to be similar, perhaps a little bit less, or perhaps a little bit more. Let's take a look inside now. Going in for a closer look at the seats, it's a little bit difficult to tell on camera, but this is sort of a chestnut brown. We have ventilated seat bottom and seat back cushions. This is a combination of leather and the imitation suede upholstery that we've seen from Lexus for a while. Nice touch is that we get some controls on the seat back itself to adjust its recline and of course slide it forward and backward because this is a really big back seat and the back seat is definitely important for RX shoppers. How do you feel back there, Travis?
Yeah, so I'm a really tall torso and I have a couple inches of headroom. I do just barely fit, but most people fit just fine.
Yeah, it looks pretty good back there. It's also wider than the Lexus NX. So if you've got child seats, you want to put adults in the back, this is definitely going to be the option to choose. The center console is essentially the same as the rest of the RX lineup, except for 2 extra buttons over here on this side. These are the ones that control the hybrid drivetrain. It's a little bit confusing that they didn't just make this a knob or whatever. This is the button for the auto, hybrid, or EV mode. It's going to choose whatever is most efficient at the time. This one toggles between hybrid mode, EV only mode, and a hold to charge mode. So 4 different modes, 2 different buttons for those 4 modes. We then have the joystick style shifter that we've come to expect from Lexus for a while. The cargo area is the same size as the rest of the RX lineup, but if we take a look under the load floor, you'll notice no spare tire lives under here. And that's because the battery and some of the electronics live under that area. The battery itself is living mostly under the passenger area of the vehicle, but some of the other related systems did have to go somewhere, and that somewhere is right back there. Charging the battery happens right over here on this side. There's a standard J1772 charge port there, and the onboard AC charger is rated at 6.6 kilowatts. That means that this battery is going to charge relatively rapidly compared to some plug-in hybrids that still only use a 3.3 kilowatt charger. All right, it's time to get the RX 450h Plus out on the road, and behind the wheel, of course, is Travis right now. What do you think about the name first? Do you think 450h Plus is a bit plussy?
You know, nomenclatures are all difficult to figure out, and every manufacturer wants to do something different. 450, 450h, 450h Plus. Once you get on board, it's easier to keep track of, but for someone who's coming in and shopping, I think it's a lot to try and sort through.
Yeah, so the interesting thing, as I said at the beginning of the video, is that this plug-in hybrid system is essentially the one from the RAV4 Prime, which is fantastic in the Prime, also in the Lexus NX. Now it's in the RX here, and soon a variant of it with a bigger engine is going to be in the Lexus TX. So Lexus is definitely suddenly going big in the plug-in hybrid direction, as I would say the closest competitor to this, which in my mind would be the Volvo XC60.
Yeah, and you can see the integration of these different hybrid and plug-in hybrid systems, obviously based on the RAV4 Prime, which has been incredibly successful. And I think so far they're expecting similar results here with the 450h Plus.
Yeah, Lexus has definitely generally sold a lot of hybrids. Their plug-in hybrid sales are now growing. But part of the reason I say that the Volvo lineup seems to be the most direct competitor to this and the Lexus TX in an interesting way is that Volvo is selling about 60% of their volume in most markets in the United States, most areas in the US, are plug-in hybrids. So they're really shifting a lot of things with big battery packs. But they've gone after this a little bit differently than Lexus. So here in the Lexus RX, like the Lexus NX plug-in hybrid, the first thing that we should say is that there is a mode where we're in EV mode now, so go ahead and floor it. And it doesn't turn the gas engine on.
Stay right there, yeah.
Yeah. How do you feel about that? I'm a little torn. Like I'm part of me wants to say you should be able to control it and stay in EV mode with the gauge on the screen and your right foot. But the other part of me says, I want to stay in EV mode.
Yeah, there's a fine balance to strike there, and if someone says, I want EV mode, that's what they're declaring. However, the performance in this is very different in pure EV than it is to hybrid.
Oh, yeah.
And so if you are in a pinch and you're trying to get somewhere quick or make an evasive maneuver, I think there should be a point where you hit that kick down and it does switch over. Because if that's how much you're trying to get where you're going in such a rush, you should have all the power available. So
Yeah.
I'm torn, but I think maybe there's an initial kick down and a final kick down, whatever that needs to be.
I think there should be some slight change here.
Yeah.
Because it is quite slow in electric only mode. It'll get you there. It'll get you to 60. It'll get you to highway speeds, but it's going to be about 12 seconds or so.
Yeah.
Versus just under 6 seconds, 0 to 60.
Admittedly, if there's a plug-in hybrid, I like to drive it in hybrid mode or in EV mode as much as possible. And I understand that there's going to be a performance differential, and that's something that I'm willing to accept. But as you said, if I need to get somewhere in a hurry, I have the power available. I'm expecting it to be there.
Yep.
And if it's not, that could be trouble.
But no, it did a good job. It pulled out in traffic, and I would say the 0 to 30 feels peppier.
Yes.
It's that after 30 speed range where it definitely is going to feel a little bit sluggish comparison.
It drops
to
off
the others.
quickly.
Yeah. The driving feel is also going to be a little bit different than the other mainline plug-in hybrid in the segment. Again, the XC60. Sorry, guys, I know we're talking Volvo a lot here in a Lexus video, but again, closest direct competitor to this because it also has an electric motor in the back, but in EV mode, it's only rear-wheel drive. And this actually has the ability to be all-wheel drive in electric-only mode because we have a big motor up front and the big motor in the back. So that's kind of a nice trade-off there.
Yeah.
The Volvo, though, 0 to 60 about 4.2 seconds, so it's really swift.
It's significant. And again, that's one where in EV mode, you're going to get a little bit more power out of it, and you might not run into that, where's my power in an emergency situation. But I think the balance so far has been pretty good, and I think the Lexus customer is not necessarily looking for the sportiest experience, even though what I prefer is sporty experience and coming with a plug.
Yeah, and that's kind of the interesting twist. This is the more pragmatic option. It's probably going to be cheaper to keep around, cheaper to maintain, etc. There's no turbo under the hood like you find in actually some of the new Lexus hybrid systems or the hybrid systems from the Europeans. We should talk about the other options actually here too, because there's the Audi Q5 plug-in hybrid that has sold pretty well in the United States. That has an interesting twist because it's the same Audi Quattro system with a dual clutch transmission and an electric motor. So you're in electric mode, you're going to feel those shifts. The power's going through the transmission, just like the upcoming X3 plug-in hybrid from BMW. It's going to shift in your electric-only mode.
Yeah.
And the Volvo's kind of a weird twist because it doesn't, because it just has that motor in the back, but then when it's in hybrid mode, you'll feel it shift. So it has a sort of a split personality,
Right.
whereas this and the other European options have a singular personality, and it's just which one is right for you.
If you're trying to keep it simple, I think this experience right here is great because everything is going to feel the same as you go through. It is going to be different from a traditional transmission where you feel those shifts, but I think it's a good trade-off, especially in the luxury segment where smooth is often key.
Yeah, let's go ahead and put this in the charge sustain mode here, so it'll turn on the engine. Then we'll just slow down, then we can actually just speed back up to 30 here. Nothing crazy on this residential area here, but we'll just see how this drive system sounds. While we're slowing down, I should say that Lexus does blended braking, so the regenerative potential is pretty good in the battery. No one-pedal driving mode, though.
No. And that
Yeah.
engine kicks in pretty quickly. It's there, and you can feel the additional power, but nothing overwhelming.
Yeah, it's not going to be the smoothest sounding engine. I think it is a little bit less gruff than the 2-liter turbo that we find in the Volvo lineup. It's not going to be as smooth as that V6 in the new TX.
Yeah, and when you're looking at the luxury segment, smooth is key, and I would prefer to be driving this vehicle in EV mode most of the time because
Yeah.
that engine isn't anything overly inspiring.
Yeah, and what I find interesting is that Lexus really basically did transplant RAV4 Prime's hybrid system in here. I know Lexus probably doesn't want to say that, but that's the truth. It gets 2 more horsepower, big whoop, but the big deal is I think the efficiency and the range, because in the RAV4 Prime, you will honest to goodness get 40 miles of range and 40 miles per gallon while driving that relatively gently.
Yeah.
I suspect that if you drive this gently, you'd probably get the same, because it's yes, it's bigger, a little less aerodynamic, but in the right hands, you could be getting 40 around in both of those numbers.
It would at least be very close. And I think, again, for the similar powertrains, but a very different vehicle. I mean, it's a different segment. It's looking for a different consumer. I think to be able to transplant that so effectively is highly beneficial to Toyota and Lexus.
Yeah, I mean, for me, if anybody I knew was shopping for a Lexus RX, I would say get the plug-in hybrid because you get the extra power. So the regular hybrid RX feels a little bit sluggish. The RX 500H is not exactly my cup of tea. That the way the 6-speed automatic works, it's just not as smooth as I would like. The Volvo stepped automatic combo, thematically, the Lexus RX with the Direct 4 system, same thing that's going on under the hood of the Volvo, but Volvo has had more years to work on it, and so it comes across as fully baked. And the Lexus one, it's powerful, but it's not exactly well sorted. And I think this solves all that problem. Plus, you get the extra electric range.
I think what I look for in a plug-in hybrid vehicle is to first understand what kind of plug-in hybrid is. Is it an efficiency plug-in hybrid or a performance-oriented plug-in hybrid? And I think Volvo has done a very good job of making some performance-oriented plug-in hybrids that are still incredibly efficient. And I think this Lexus is going to fall pretty squarely into the efficiency one. It benefits from that extra power, but at the same time, its bread and butter is going to be getting you where you need to go efficiently.
Yeah, and inexpensively. And that's probably the bigger benefit, I think, to actually a lot of RX shoppers, especially if you plan on keeping your car a reasonable amount of time. If you can drive in electric-only mode, even half of your daily commute, you're going to visit the gas station considerably less. You could end up lowering your total cost of fueling the vehicle, which some people like. I mean, you're spending $70,000 on a plug-in hybrid, so
less is less.
Yeah,
but
clearly the budget's high already. But it is going to help you feel a little bit better about yourself. But the bigger convenience there of just not going to the gas station, I think, is a big benefit.
That's the key of the plug-in hybrid, is that you can go wherever you need to go without ever worrying about a plug, but every morning you unplug on your way out the door and you're set and ready to go. And I think it's a growing segment. It'll be great to see the competition come in, like we talked about the X3. I anticipate that more to be a little bit performance-oriented versus the Lexus, but it's great to see competition and a growing segment that I think meets a lot of customers' needs and introduces them to electrification in a way that's a lot safer than a full plug-in hybrid.
Yeah, and the other thing I think that Lexus does really well is no compromises hybrids and very low compromise plug-in hybrids. So the hybrid version of this doesn't lose the spare tire, still has a spare, still has the same roominess on the inside. In this vehicle, some of the dimensions change around just a tiny bit in the cargo area, but it's a very low compromise hybrid because essentially the major thing that's gone back there is the spare tire. The cargo area is basically the same size. You lose a tiny bit of storage under the floor, not a big deal, but you lose that spare tire. And I think for a lot of shoppers, especially in this segment, I think that's a okay trade-off.
Yeah, I like having a spare tire, but I also have AAA, and so if I run into a pinch, I'm probably going to be okay. And I think, like you said, the segment that this falls in, they are likely to have AAA or don't mind giving their insurance a call should they find themselves in a pinch.
Yeah, you're just going to end up on a flatbed, rather unfortunately. They're not going to come out and swap your spare on and have you drive on your way. You're gonna end up getting towed somewhere, which is going to be a bummer in the middle of the night. But I think the trade-off for the day-to-day functionality, I think, is a decent thing. A little bit trickier, though, is the price tag.
Yes, this is not an inexpensive vehicle.
Be sure and sound off in the comments section below. Let me know what you think of the Lexus RX 450h Plus. Again, lots of alphabet soup there. Do you think Lexus did enough, or should they have borrowed the new plug-in hybrid system from the Lexus TX? That one I find really interesting because one of the big reasons that folks loved the RX for years and years is that it still had a naturally aspirated V6 engine. Even in the hybrid model, it had a V6. And that hybrid system essentially is now found in the Lexus TX with the same battery and the same rear electric motor as this. You get more horsepower, you get better performance, you do lose a little bit of fuel economy, but the fuel economy is still pretty darn good for a big 3-row SUV. Let me know what you think about that, and of course stay tuned for that Lexus TX video coming soon. Bottom line for the moment for the RX 450h Plus, I like it. I think it's going to make Lexus fans really happy that there is a Lexus with lots of good electric range. I also love the fact that this will stay in EV mode only if you floor it, so you can really maximize your EV range. But if you're looking for the most fun entry in this segment, it's not going to be the RX. I would actually say that's the Volvo XC60. And fun is not something that Volvo has been associated with really historically, but the XC60 Recharge has 455 horsepower. It's just barely over 4 seconds 0 to 60. It is significantly faster than this. And it's really not that much smaller on the inside. It has a much boxier profile. I think the design is perhaps a little bit more classic, a little bit less controversial than this. But more importantly, it's less expensive. It starts at around $62,000 or so solidly less expensive than this Lexus. Now, base model to base model, you're going to get more feature content in the Lexus. Logically, this is going to be more reliable, cheaper to keep around, probably cheaper to insure long-term as well. But that Volvo, it's a pretty attractive option. We also see other plug-in hybrids from some of the other mainstream luxury players, but none of them are quite as interesting, I think, as this Lexus or the Volvo. So these would be my top 2 picks in the segment at the moment. Be sure and let me know what you think about all that. Sound off down there in the comment section below, and I'll see all of you later.